Well, welcome back. Today I'm down at a local beach to try to answer some of the questions that I'm often asked regarding safety and going solo camping. The top 3 things that people ask me about, they hear I go solo camping, is, aren't you afraid of getting injured and nobody's going to be there to help you? The second area of concern is about wildlife. Where we live, it's primarily questions about wolves, bears, and cougars. And an area of concern which concerns me from other women primarily. And they ask, what about those crazy people that you can meet out there? They're afraid of other human beings. All of these 3 areas are legitimate concerns, and I don't take any of them lightly. So I'm going to share with you today what I do to prepare and to look after myself when I go solo camping. So let's talk about injuries first. Injuries and what happens if I get sick. Well, injuries do happen, but the most common injuries that happen while people are out camping are the basic cuts and bruises, burns and blisters including sunburn, strains and sprains, hypothermia, dehydration, insect bites and stings. Catastrophic things do happen occasionally, but for the most part, most of the injuries I've had have been in the category of manageable injuries. So, of course, I think most of us carry some kind of a first aid kit. Building a first aid kit, there's always some basics that can go into every first aid kit, and there needs to be some things that match what you're doing. Like, I'm not going climbing a mountain. I don't live in an area with poisonous reptiles, so you have to consider all of that in your first aid kit. But there's some things that I always carry. I have a package of various types of band-aids and compression bandage. I also carry a treatment for stopping bleeding. It's called Wound Seal, the one I have. The old standby moleskin, a compression, a tensor bandage, and a few medications which are standard, or things like the Tylenol, some ibuprofen, and I also usually carry some Benadryl because I know I get a sensitivity to some insect bites. And then I carry any personal medication. So my first aid kit is actually quite small, but I think it covers a lot of things. I also carry in my first aid kit some tape, and I also carry some duct tape on my hiking poles. I think with some duct tape and maybe some dental floss, you can actually almost build a fort. Those are 2 really simple things that can be easily carried. I also really encourage people to take a basic first aid kit, because you can have all the tools in your kit, but if you don't know how to use them effectively, learning things like elevating an affected limb to help putting pressure on a wound. Lots of us know those kind of basic things, but it never hurts to take a refresher or to take at least one basic first aid course in your life. Where I live, hypothermia is really a relevant threat. I spend a lot of time around water. Speaking of, I'm right here at the beach now. The water here is never really very warm, so it wouldn't take much time in the ocean here to sustain a severe case of hypothermia. The same is true of the rivers and the lakes, and I go in my canoe quite a lot, so I could tip out. So what I do to manage hypothermia is I carry 3 different ways usually to start a fire. I have my knife and my fair rod. I have 2 kinds of matches. I have a lighter, and I usually carry some fire starter. All our wood here is really wet, and it can be very, very difficult to start a fire. So I give myself lots of options, and I'm quite happy to carry either the fire starters that I make at home or some commercial fire starter. I also keep with me a spare set of clothing, which I carry in a waterproof bag. and that is really, really important. I find as a bonus, even if I'm going for a day hike, I'll take along like a plastic poncho and a little reflective sheet. You never know. They're simple, they're light, they're compact, and they're inexpensive. If we don't have anything like that, taking along a couple of really heavy-duty plastic bags can be turned into a shelter and also to pieces of clothing. I like the bigger bags, which are heavier duty, and having an orange one and a dark one is often a good combination. Orange is easily seen and the dark color absorbs the heat. So those are two other things that I do to protect myself from hypothermia. As far as dehydration goes, you'd think with all the water around here on the West Coast, dehydration wouldn't be a problem. We commonly have animals which can pass along illnesses to us as human beings and pass to us things like giardia, which could be a very inconvenient when I'm on a backpacking trip. So I always have water tablets, and recently I've had this water filter which has worked really well, and I try to keep 2 liters of treated water ready to drink at all times. I also think it's important to look on the maps and on the trail guides to look for the next water source, to know how long it's going to take till you get there. Another thing that I wanted to share with you that I do, which I have in case of injury or severe illness, is my Zoleo. It's one of the devices that's available. It has a SOS on it, and it also, this one, you can use you pair it with your phone, and so you can use it for texting. The Zoleo connects to a satellite if you're going to be away from cell service. I also carry a power bank. The second major area of concern that people have expressed to me, and it's a concern to me, is wildlife. A while back I did a video on being afraid to camp alone and 5 tips to help you, and I did address some of these things at that time, but I think some things bear repeating and maybe expanding on a little bit. I think it's very important to know what the wildlife issues are potentially going to be in your area, and like I said earlier, we have bears, we have cougars, and wolves. Those 3 mammals are the ones that can perhaps cause us grief and give us fear. I'm no exception. I have been very fortunate in all the years I've gone camping, which are many, that I have never had an incident. I have met animals, primarily black bears, and there's never been a dangerous encounter. So, but I do take some precautions. The times I've met a bear, I have actually been with somebody else. So what did we do? We spoke in a loud voice, but not yelling. We talked to the bear, and at the same time we backed away and talked constantly as we moved away from the bear. We were quite close on a couple of occasions, and the bear looked at us and we left. On one occasion, the bear just ran away. Another, it stood behind the tree and looked at us, and we left and waited. And another time it was we met a bear sitting on the trail eating skunk cabbage, and we were just walking we were just hiking quietly, and suddenly we came around a corner and there's somebody having breakfast. And so again, we just talked to the bear, left the area. We went and sat down a good distance away for about half an hour. And then we approached the area after we felt it was likely the bear had gone. We gave it about 20 minutes or half an hour. We weren't going to rush breakfast. And we talked though this time. Sometimes when you're by yourself, you are not making much noise. And if you're hiking with a buddy, very often you just get into a zone and nobody says very much. And you just walk quite quietly along. So But I found those times. Another time I confronted a bear in the kayak, and it looked at me and I looked at it, and I just paddled backwards, got away, went further out in the lake, waited for that bear to move on. Yeah, there's been a few occasions. I have never met a cougar while camping, and I've only ever met one wolf. And that was a very strange encounter because the wolf, we were just going to bed, it was getting dark. And there was 3 of us, my daughter, a girlfriend, and myself. And we were lying down, and suddenly my daughter says, "Mom, there's a wolf looking in our tent." Oh, my friend and I sat bolt upright, and the wolf just turned and ran away. We had quite a discussion as to what we should do next, and eventually my friend decided to get up and have a look, and the wolf was long gone. Yeah, it does happen. It does happen, but touch wood, I've never really had a problem. I think avoidance, if you see scat in the area, just don't go there, especially if it's fresh. Don't try to go into the bear don't try to go into the wildlife's known territory where you can see very often that this is just a path they go on. And if you can, I think I try to avoid it. And then if we meet up, I retreat. But I retreat slowly. Well, I think it's slowly, but perhaps I'm going a little quicker backwards than I thought I was. But yeah, just backing away and talking in a normal voice, and speaking to the bear and giving it lots of space. And if you have to go back that way, I give it lots of time. And then just relax, go sit down somewhere for a while, and then make noise going into that area again. Do carry bear spray, and I also have a very loud horn. This is also a safety horn if you get injured. You can blow it, can be heard for up to a mile away. SOS, 3 short, 3 long. And I also have a bear banger with cartridges for it. I've never had to use any of these, and I'm very grateful for that. But it is a comfort when I'm by myself to know that I have these things. I think it's important to watch videos on YouTube on how to use these, how to deploy them safely and effectively, because you can do yourself and others a lot of harm. And you can be spraying this, but if you don't know how to spray it, and the things to consider when you're spraying, you may spray all you want and it's not going to be effective. So know what to do with these. Also, they have an expiry date on them, so check the expiry date. I wear mine in a fanny pack in front of me when I have my pack on. Some people put them on their shoulder straps. Whatever works for you is fine, and I hope that I'll never be called upon to have to use any of these things. So that brings us to number 3, the one that's probably more troubling to many people than the wildlife and the injuries, and that's other humans. And isn't that a shame? I've met many people out when I've been out camping, men and women, and I have actually never really had a significant problem. 2 times that I can think of, I was with somebody else, and some people 2 guys drove in with their pickup truck. They had the guns on the back window. They had 2 people with 2 cases of beer. So I was with my husband and my kids. They were small. And so we just packed up. We were in a recreation site, the end of a gravel road on a lake. And so we just said hello, have a nice day. We're just packing up to leave, and we left. Again, this is sort of like wildlife, a retreat if you need to. And I did choose to retreat another time too. I avoid going on weekends to go out into the backcountry because that seems to be the time that many people decide to party on. I try to go out midweek, somewhere between Sunday night and leave by Friday morning. I find for me that works better. I really like to go to isolated backcountry sites where you either have to hike in or you have to paddle in. But I avoid drive-in recreation sites or backcountry camping. People who really want to party don't want to have to hike or paddle really far with all their whatever they're partying with. Again, I have to say that very often if there's people around or they're paddling by where I am, I will choose to wear my bear spray on my belt. It's visible. It's also legal. It's not designed to be spraying at people. But I've had a couple of people comment and they said, "Oh, that's great, you got bear spray." I sort of have to think about treating unpredictable people maybe like unpredictable wildlife. People should know better, but they don't always. They're mostly a problem if they're impaired by alcohol or other substances. Most people in the world are good. I choose to believe that, and that sustains me. And I always focus on that. So in summary, we've covered the injuries, the basic things to do to try to mitigate, prevent, and reduce harm from injury, and what I do and the safety precautions that I take. I have found having the Zoleo has given me some reassurance, and it certainly reassures my family. So I think it's worth it for me. Talked a little bit about the animals, about avoiding, like knowing your environment, avoiding known areas where wildlife are obviously visiting. If you meet somebody, retreat, and last resort, use whatever you have with you that's legal. And same really applies to people. I really just avoid. I do everything I can to avoid. But I think in the end we all have a level of risk that we're willing to take, and that we may not always be 100% comfortable, and I think that's okay. But I'm willing to be uncomfortable to a point. And I know what that point is, and really I just love the outdoors. I like getting out, and I've discovered that I like solo camping. Never thought I would want to do that, but at this point in my life I'm willing to take that risk. Maybe I wasn't when I had little kids. My life is different now. I have developed a certain level of risk that I'm willing to work with. So I encourage you to carry on with whatever you're comfortable with. And I hope maybe one or two things I might have mentioned might be reassuring to you that you're doing things that a lot of other people are doing. I have talked to other campers, a few other campers before making this video to see what their issues were. And it is primarily women who are concerned about the other human beings. I'd really like to hear from you fellows, and I know that I have a number of male subscribers, how you feel about this, and how do you deal with people, maybe a little differently than women do. Perhaps we feel a bit more vulnerable, but I don't know. If you can honestly tell me or tell us how you manage your vulnerability, I think we'd all appreciate hearing from you. I believe in the goodness of most people, and I go with that. So give that video a thumbs up if you got something out of it, or if you just enjoyed it. And if you have comments, criticisms, please fire away. And I'm always happy to learn more from my subscribers, from my viewers. I really appreciate your input. All right then, bye-bye for now, and live fully.